Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Livin The Dream podcast. I am Rishi Barran. I have been with the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting basically since it started, and we're going strong 5 years now. And among the outstanding students that we had come through, maybe not any more energetic and fun than Ellie Davis, who she just told me, breaking news, recently got a promotion. She is going to be the weekend evening anchor at her station, WITN-TV in Greenville, North Carolina. She actually just found out that also shows at WECT in Wilmington, North Carolina. Ellie, you are joining us from Nashville while you're on vacation. That's dedication right there. How are you?
I am so wonderful. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
I'm excited for you, and you have just been crushing it since the day you left our program. You already had a job in hand when you left. We'll get more into that in a moment, but let's go back in time to when this all started. Where did the dream begin for you?
I would definitely say that I have always been a very chatty individual. I'm very extroverted, and heading into high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. And that's about the time that you should probably start thinking about it, at least in my opinion. And running through course schedules and meeting a bunch of different teachers, I found out that the high school that I was attending had radio and TV classes. And I was like, what an interesting elective. Let me go check this out. You know, a whole class where I get to sit and talk and not get in trouble for it. And just instantly fell in love with, learning all about the cameras and being able to just immerse yourself in what's going on in the world and trying to localize it, while also being able to showcase, what's going on in the high school, whether it be the sports, new clubs, new classes. And so I think it just really started there. And then I had the opportunity to do a high school radio show. And I think that was the highlight of my entire high school experience, an hour every single week after school, just chatting my little heart out about anything and everything. And that's definitely where it started for me.
What kind of interest did you have in the media and in sports before you had that wonderful opportunity to get involved in all that in high school?
I think I was always looking at it from an outsider's perspective, looking at sporting events saying, oh, those camera angles are really cool. And I love the way that they, structured this interview and the type of coverage, especially during, catastrophic events, whether it be hurricanes, mass shootings, deaths of, influential people like presidents. You're watching that kind of coverage. And it's impressive, how these people can tell these stories and make these human connections. And I think that's when it started for me. This is something that I want to do. I want to tell somebody else's story and be able to communicate what's going on in the world to the public.
So you're at Homestead High School in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and that radio station was WCYT, I believe. That's what I inferred from doing a little research. And that door just opened to you, and it seems like that personality just came out. It felt right. Take us through the experience of being involved in that show.
Yeah, so it was really cool because it was so new to me my freshman year, and you have to get really comfortable with just speaking. I mean, it can't be structured. It can be structured, but you're not rehearsing it. You're not reading off a script. It's let me just talk, but let me talk in a way where people driving to school are going to laugh, or they're going to start to ask questions and they're going to be intrigued about what you're talking about. And you've got to do it without them being able to see your face, which I think is one of the biggest challenges is, they're not watching your facial expressions to see if you're laughing. You have to convey that to them. They need to know whether or not you're serious. So really paying attention to your tone and all of that, but then also making it fun. I mean, I know the girl that I did the show with in high school, we would do, jelly bean tasting contests. And that was one of the big things for me where it's so enjoyable because you're not watching your face as you're, choking on these, burnt popcorn tasting jelly beans. So it's, you get to be a little more animated, and my show very much focused on entertainment. So it was, the funniest things that we could find. It was different challenges, would you rathers. So it was just all about, how much fun can we have on this? And you put a little bit of structure in there in terms of, you can't just get on there and be like, I don't know what we're going to talk about. But it was just fun. And then it ended up turning into, me realizing this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. And it went on to win some state awards my junior and my senior year, which was really cool. And that for me further solidified, okay, not only do I like listening to my friends and I talk, but other people do too.
What kind of awards did you win?
So there's the Indiana Association of Student Broadcasters. So it's all Indiana high school broadcast radio shows across the entire state can submit to this IASB competition. So we won second place for state radio shows my junior and my senior year out of a couple hundred or so radio shows. So that was really, really, really cool.
How did that build your confidence to know that it wasn't just the students at your school that were enjoying it, but there were other people that were taking note of your work as well?
Oh, it was a huge confidence booster. I think especially when you're in high school, like I've said, you're trying to figure things out while also trying to figure yourself out. And I know, at least for me, a lot of people thought it was really weird that I had a radio show or that I was on, TV video announcements. So getting feedback from industry professionals on, hey, we like your content, we like your delivery, we like your story structure. That was a huge moment for me because it was kind of the clarification that I needed that this is right for me and I'm not just somebody chattering for no reason,
Yeah, and that leads into my next question. You mentioned that you had a little bit of structure with these shows. How did you decide what content each show would go in and where you would go in terms of what ideas you had?
Well, we would do a little bit of planning prior. So we had Wednesday radio shows. So on Tuesdays, we would get together, my co-host and I, and we just kind of figure out, what do we want to do? Do we want to do fun, interactive events where we're saying, hey, we're going to put some stuff on social media. We'd love to get your reactions to, Twitter polls or Facebook polls or Instagram polls. We would also look up pretty common things that were discussed on radio shows just to get us a better idea. So we would have people, call in and give us, their favorite jokes, or just kind of the best way for us was interacting with the community for, some more ideas, because we're broadcasting, to people. So we want to find out what the people need. So planning meetings and also social media interaction were our two biggest assets for when it came to structure.
And I got to know, who won the jelly bean contest? I know that popcorn one is a little controversial. Some people love it, some people hate it. What was your vote? Do you remember?
Oh Lord, I was not a fan of it. We did burnt popcorn. There was like a booger jelly bean.
My God, who would want that?
Not for me, not for me.
All right. Well, then, as an award-winning broadcaster already, you decided to come to us, to Full Sail University and the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting. There's a lot of choices out there. What made you sold on what we were doing?
Well, I think that coming from the state of Indiana, you've got Ball State and you've got IU, and they've got, pretty fair journalism programs, but I wanted a little bit more than being a number in a classroom. And that's always been my biggest thing, is that, I love hands-on learning. I love the opportunity for one-on-one. And my cousin initially was at Full Sail for video game design. And this was shortly, probably like a year or two after the program came out. And he said, you have got to come check this out. And so I kind of like begged my mom. I was like, do you want to go to Florida with me? And so I came down with my mom. I had no idea what to expect. I mean, I'd watched, some videos about it, but I didn't know exactly, how life altering the program would soon become for me. And I came and I toured, and it was, you come in and you get information unloaded onto you, and then it's, okay, now I want to see you do it. So, we get to come up to the desk and do a read with a teleprompter and a live hit in front of Lambeau Field, which was very perfect for me because I'm a Packers fan. But it was right then and there being able to not only get on the desk, so it's like, hey, this is something I already really love, and now I'm getting practice. You're getting instant feedback. I mean, it was a very immersive tour. And I just kept thinking, if this is anything like the education is going to be, this is exactly where I think I need to start. And I never looked back.
That's the behind the scenes tour that you're talking about, which I think that they have statistics based on people who come to that tour. And it's like a huge number. It's like 85% or something. People come to see what Full Sail is all about. They are just blown away with the technology and everything else. And I don't want to make your head too big, but I know you've heard this before, that Gus Ramsey, our program director, has often noted that you had like the epic performance of the behind the scenes tour. You were comfortable already, in front of the camera with your voice through the radio. But what was your mindset when you had to step up in front of that green screen and be at Lambeau Field, knowing that, wow, I am doing this for real in terms of this school now?
I was very nervous. I had some experience in high school being behind the desk, but I'd never done an unscripted, live shot like that. So I was nervous. I wanted them to see what I was capable. Impressing Gus from the minute I walked in was at the top of my list of priorities. And it was nerve-wracking. I mean, it was scary. I mean, obviously, you're not live in front of tens of thousands of people, but live in front of Gus Ramsey is just as scary.
Well, no, obviously he designed it for you with Lambeau Field being
oh yeah,
he knew you were coming, right? We're talking to Ellie Davis, the newly minted evening weekend anchor for WITN-TV in Greenville, North Carolina. Always confusing to me, Greenville, North Carolina versus South Carolina, because there's two different TV markets, but North Carolina is where she is at. And Ellie, you came to our program, you had that excitement about the hands-on opportunity. And at the time, the class that you stepped into is our freshman class, if you want to call it that, was, I think, the biggest one we'd had at that point. You had a lot of different personalities in that group. What was it like walking in the door and meeting all of your classmates that you were going to go on this journey with for the first time?
I'm Ellie Davis here at Full Sail's Hall of Fame, joined today by Jay Harris. Jay, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Ellie.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
It was very exciting, very intimidating. I was the only female in the class, so that in and of itself set the precedent for, I gotta be good. I need to make sure that I can prove to myself that, I'm worth it, and being here is the right decision. And then also prove it to the rest of the boys that, I can be in sports as a female. And it was intimidating. It was a lot of different personalities, like you said. Everybody's got a different learning style, different interests when it comes to broadcasts. So it was great. You're learning right off the bat what everybody wants to do. You're learning from them, because not everybody knows the same amount of information, which is so valuable, because not everybody knows the same amount about hockey or basketball. So you put them in a room and then you sit and learn from two people at the same time.
What advice do you have for other females that are coming into the program and entering, which, well, for a long time was a male-dominated industry? Things have changed a bit, but it's still, as you said, can be intimidating. What advice do you have for others that are going to follow in your footsteps?
I would say for females that are looking to get into this industry is, first and foremost, you're worth it. You are qualified for this. This is exactly where you should be if it's where you want to be. It can be really intimidating walking into a classroom full of guys, especially because there is that, misconception that just because you are a female, you don't know anything about sports. And it's not worth, getting in arguments or, trying to constantly prove yourself, because the second, that red light goes on, that's your time. And that is your opportunity. And, you crush it, and that's all you need to say. Your work speaks for itself.
And I think that the amount of work that Ellie put in, and we're going to get into more of that in a moment, and the preparedness, the preparation she put into continuously getting better and growing and knowing her stuff, as she said, that's good advice for anyone, male, female, whatever your background is. It's an opportunity for you to stand out, because there are people who will have unjust first impressions just because of whatever area they grew up in and whatever their situation was. And it's just from ignorance, really, more than anything. And it's in the way that you get through that is you let people get to know you and get to know what you're all about. And Ellie was a standout from day one in our program and continues to be a standout. She's still got her whole life ahead of her. She's already making waves and doing big things. So really proud of you, Ellie. And I'm proud of the progress you had in our program. What was it like early on going through the classes that eventually built up to graduation?
Well, early on, it was, a couple of your prerequisite classes. So you're learning basic media. And then by your third month, you're on the desk and you're working in, your first course dedicated solely to sports. And that was when, for me, I got the most excited because, now we're into it. And this is going to be when things are going to start to change. So it was good. I mean, it really highlights the importance of organization, and the effort that you put in is what you're going to get out. And I think that's the biggest thing. This is not a program where you can expect things to be handed to you, or you can be a little more laid back, because the minute that, you get on the desk or you're doing anything on the air, your work is going to speak for itself. Whatever you put in is going to reflect onto your final product. So it was really good. I was part of, a class that lost a lot of in-person opportunities due to the pandemic, which was definitely a challenge, but it also helped me realize how badly I wanted this. Because when you only have the opportunities to do your, on-camera assignments on Zoom, it can really curb your motivation, because you're not, in a classroom full of your students, you're not in front of the camera, you're not mic'd up. So it just kind of further motivates you. So that was a big challenge when it came to being at the school for me. But then towards the end of the program, I was able to get back on campus and be meeting with teachers daily and spending all my free time in the studio. I mean, the classes became my second home, and the university was my favorite place to be. So it really takes off for you. You really go from not a lot of sports centered courses, because you are getting a college education and you've got to get those math and science classes in, and then it just picks up, and then you're off and running, and you're behind the camera, you're in front of the camera, you're in the control room, you're in the audio booth. So it gets very crazy very fast, but very exciting nonetheless.
Yeah, and challenges come up, and you faced a very difficult one, and you spoke of the motivation, internal motivation that was needed to get through that. But I guess that's life, that a lot of difficult things can come up. Where we find true success stories are the people who navigate through that. What advice do you have for any of our students, whatever adversity they're facing, to deal with the mental battles that go with that, and also the motivational battles?
Yeah, I would definitely say that being open and honest about the thoughts that you're having is really important. I mean, I know I had reached out to either classmates or a couple instructors on the fact that, I was struggling, and it can be overwhelming, especially working in TV now and realizing how much emphasis you need to put on not only your work, but your mental health as well. I mean, it's such a part that you can't not focus on. So I think being open and honest all the time, being in constant communication with your teachers, and then just kind of reassuring yourself, hey, this is where I want to be, and it's going to take a little bit of extra effort because I'm facing challenges. But at the end of the day, just realize why you're here and why it's important to, continue on the path that you've been on.
Ellie, eventually you did get back on campus, and I have to say you took advantage of every opportunity that came your way. How important were the extracurricular activities to add to what you learned in the classes?
In terms of
doing stuff outside of just the classwork, whether it be your work with Tennis Channel or any of the other stuff that you did.
Oh, I would say yes to everything. I mean, before somebody even finishes a sentence of, do you want, just say yes. It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, I was volunteering at Tennis Channel. I was doing play-by-play broadcasts for high school volleyball games, and you learn so much. I mean, just say yes to everything. You have no idea who you're going to meet. You have no idea how many endless opportunities there are to expand on your education outside of the classroom. And you will never regret showing up to anything involved in broadcasting if this is really what you want to do.
What's up, everyone? I'm here at the Orlando Health Fortress at Full Sail University, and we are officially 1 hour away from the Hall of Fame induction ceremony.
Spend all your free time doing things. You're just going to help yourself in the long run.
It's easy to say, it's hard to do. How difficult was it managing all the different responsibilities you had, especially on a class schedule, which changes every month?
It is a bit challenging. My planner became my best friend. I am trying to continuously stay organized. So writing things down, making sure you're not overscheduling yourself is really important too. I mean, nobody can be everywhere at once, and you need to make sure you're prioritizing, taking breaks and, getting the right amount of sleep, and that you're not lagging on your education as well. I mean, I don't personally think it does any good to be involved in an extracurricular if you're failing your classes. So time management is crucial. Say yes to everything, but make sure you can do it in an appropriate manner.
Wise advice. Love it. Now, when it comes to your experience, you came in with already a background with the radio work that you had done, but how did all of the vocal training classes and writing classes and everything help you take that initial learning period and bring it to the next level?
Oh, they were very beneficial. I think I thought I knew a little bit, and I listen to my radio broadcast now, and I think of how different my voice sounds. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, turn it off. Who let this woman go on the air? But no, I mean, you learn so much. You learn more about your own voice. You learn about control. I mean, these classes bring up things that you never would have thought of on your own. And that's why they're so great and they're so influential. And the biggest part for me was doing an assignment and then getting to sit down and be like, hey, what do you think that I could do differently? So there's constantly the opportunity for growth, and whether it be during your education or, when you're actually in industry, you're never not growing. That growth is never going to stop. And I think that it starts with the education and, the basic fundamentals, I mean, the vocal courses, and then all of our intro to camera classes, and just learning how to control yourself, vocal warm-ups. I mean, it's all the things that I still apply to my life, and, learning all of those things. And I put those into, my weekend shows. I'm doing my vocal warm-ups as I'm doing my makeup. Those aren't things that I would have thought of to do on my own before I took classes.
That's WITN's Ellie Davis. Ellie, there were, as you mentioned, a lot of skills that came into play. But what are the ones you learned from our program that you think are most critical to you now?
For right now, I would say that the skills that I learned the most were always the importance of not having your scripts on your phone, but having them on pen and paper, because I have been the victim of a live shot where my phone turns off and now I have no script in front of me, and then you're in trouble. So always having pen and paper handy. The importance of mic checks. Let me tell you, whether you're checking your own mic or you're checking one for an interview, if you don't check them and then your audio is all messed up, you can't just track these people down and do it again. So the importance of mic checks, research, always making sure you are putting out accurate information, well thought out information, so that when you're conveying it to somebody else, there's no room for a call saying, oh, well, that's not right. Your statistics are wrong, because you don't want to be wrong. It's, our job to be right. So I'd say that. And then ad-libbing. I think that is also huge, being able to communicate things on the fly, being able to converse, whether you're live at the desk or live in the field, and just being ready for things to change. Nothing is ever going to go 110% according to plan. So being flexible and not being so tightly wound that something goes wrong and you're on the verge of a mental breakdown now because you're not able to go with the flow. I mean, that is really, really important. Live TV is never perfect, and that's okay.
Sounds like a lot of troubleshooting, and I believe you handled it all well. Let's just take back to that one example that you gave and see how you approached it. So you're getting ready for your live shot, and all of a sudden you have it on your phone and it's gone. How did you get through that?
Well, it also happened to be during hurricane coverage,
Oh.
so pen and paper weren't exactly an option, but my phone got so wet and it just turned off. And I was in the middle of the hit. So it's kind of, you're in a fight or flight situation, and it's, do you want to stand there and go, or toss back to your anchor, or do you just want to take one quick breath and say, I can form coherent sentences, I'm qualified for this. I know my script. It won't be word for word, but I mean, I write my own script, so you can be able to reconvey that information. So it did take, one quick second, so you can, see the footage where it's, I stop for a second and I breathe. But I think that that's much better than throwing in a bunch of non-fluencies and standing there looking like a little bit of a basket case. So I think composure is so important, and just being able to say, okay, I can do this. We're going to go unscripted. I'm going to talk. And when I'm done, I'm going to toss back to my anchor. So just keeping it calm and composed, and then just going with the flow. Cause I mean, the phone's dead. There's nothing you're doing next.
Live television, nothing quite like it. And your mind is always racing faster than the actual situation. You think it's a longer period of time before you're speaking than it is. So just take a deep breath, take your time, get through it, which is an underrated skill in this business. So Tennis Channel gave you the opportunity, and you made the most of it and went there and did some work during school. And then that turned into your first job. So take us through kind of how the Tennis Channel opportunity worked out for you while you were in school, and how that turned into a job for you.
Tennis Channel was great. I had the opportunity to volunteer as a production assistant really, really early on in my education. So we worked a couple of different tournaments, whether it was the NCAA team championship, which was really cool, being surrounded by college athletes and Tennis Channel and ESPN so early on in my education. We did an Olympic tournament, so it was Stars and Stripes, so some Olympic tennis players coming in. And I mean, now you're dealing with really important athletes, which was cool. So you're learning the behind the scenes, which was great. I'm learning cameras and cables and how to direct and TD, which was super cool, and how to produce. And then further on down the road, there was a bit of a break due to the pandemic. And then, I came back, and they were doing less live tournaments, but now they were looking for an on-camera reporter. And because I had said yes so early on to volunteering on something, they were like, hey, we already know Ellie Davis. Do you think she'd be interested in this position? Which is why it's so important to say yes to things, because this was a year in between. And I was shocked they had even remembered that I was there. But it was a great networking opportunity. So then I got hired to do an American report every week.
Air Force women found themselves in a tough battle. They lost the doubles point and were down 3-1.
So I would shoot out of the USTA National Campus and just do a 60 to 90-second report on what's going on with American athletes in the world and where are they competing. And that turned into a really great experience for me. I ended up as a production assistant at the US Open, which was a huge educational opportunity, because, I mean, that's a major. That is huge. I mean, you're meeting international broadcast companies, you're working with pro athletes, and it just really, really solidified for me why saying yes to things early on is important. I mean, I will harp on that all day. So that just turned into the best experience.
What did you learn at the US Open from being there?
Oh my goodness. I learned more about how quickly production plans can change. That was the biggest thing. I mean, you'd set a plan for the entire day, and a tennis match would run long, or a tennis match would run short, or they got a significant amount of rain, so they're seeing 4 and 5 feet of flooding within the tennis complex. And now it's, how are we going to alter gameplay? But at the same time, it's, how can things go catastrophically wrong off screen and we never let anybody know? I mean, we were hair drying like TV commentators because they were so wet, and we needed to send them back out onto the court, but you wouldn't know. So I learned so much. I don't think I can put into words the amount of education that I left that experience with. And the reason that I got hired there is because when I initially started volunteering at Tennis Channel, I met the White Plains director for the United States Tennis Association, saw her 2 years later, and she was like, "Hey, you want to come work the US Open?" That wasn't even connected to Tennis Channel. It was just, "Hey, we've worked together before. You wanna fly up to New York for the summer and come work with us?" You don't say no to that. Never, ever. So I packed up my life and for a month or two went up to New York, and it's a whole different learning experience when you are around people that have done this for 30 and 40 years. So, yeah.
And being in that position by doing the extra work, that's how you meet people. And meeting people is how you get the opportunities. And Ellie just illustrated a perfect example of how that all works. And the other thing you did, Ellie, you talked about directing, technical directing, all that. The only reason she got to do that at Tennis Channel was because she was in our studio doing it every day as a student, in addition to all those other things she just talked about her doing. And Ellie, you really committed to that. And this was early on when we were first starting to open that opportunity to our students to be there all the time, because we then had a full set of classes. And once the pandemic, once we got through the part of the pandemic that we were allowed to be back on campus, you were all over that. What was the experience in the control room like for you at Full Sail?
Oh, that was great. I mean, I think it's really healthy if you're going to be on camera to have an understanding of how things work behind the camera. I think it'll make you a better journalist. So I had the opportunity to produce and run the teleprompter and run audio and direct. And so you're learning more about a job that you may not do. This may not be the career path that you take a little step into because you want to be on camera, but it's so great to be able to learn those things. And I think it makes you more of a well-rounded journalist to be able to go in front of the camera and behind the camera. And that's what I've always wanted. I want to be able to say that I can do everything. Maybe I can't do it, as well as somebody that is solely focused on that. But how nice is it to say, "Oh, well, I can run the camera. I can be in front of the camera. Oh, you guys need a director for an hour? Well, my show's already done. Let me come help you." It gives you a better understanding. And also it gives you more say when you're an anchor on how your show is produced. I know how to produce. I'm getting producer training. So now when it comes to my weekend shows, I have a little bit more of a say in camera angles, and I know which ones are feasible. So I think sitting in the control room, the school became my second home, if not my first home. I feel like I was there more than I was at my own home, which is not a bad thing. Like I said, there is always room to learn. And whether it was 6 hours a day or 20 minutes, I learned something new every single day. So it was the greatest opportunity to not only be in there for classes, but after classes for all the instructors to let me sit in there and get an additional education beyond what I was already receiving.
And you worked both behind the scenes and in front of the camera for Tennis Channel. What inspired you to take that next step to get to the job you are now, where you are always on the camera?
Yes, so I think I was really interested in a little bit of a change. I love sports, but there is just this human element that I felt like I was missing. And I wanted that, I wanted to tell, stories to the community. And I thought, I've got the behind the camera skills, I've got the reporting skills, I've got the anchor skills. I would love to go be in a local news market. And I started getting on LinkedIn and finding different markets that were looking for reporters and anchors. And that's when I found WITN in Greenville. And that too has been a very life-changing experience, being able to, I think there is a certain element when it comes to being a multimedia journalist to where you're setting up your own shots, you're getting all your own interviews, you're doing all the work. It is all you. And I think there is something very valuable in that you're not relying on anybody else, and you are just so well-rounded as a journalist. And I think it makes you better being able to do all those things. And I learned a lot of that from Full Sail.
That brings us to the next big question. What's it like to be living the dream right now, Ellie?
I can wholeheartedly say I have never been happier in my whole life. I am so grateful for the market that I'm in, the community that has welcomed me with open arms to come into their businesses, their homes, just being a member of their community when they didn't know me 9 months ago. It's amazing. And on top of it, this is what I get to do for the rest of my life. And it's an experience that I would not trade for the entire world. I could not be more grateful for the position that I am in and for everything that has come from it.
It's great to hear you emphasizing those connections with the community and the people in the community. And that made you stand out at Full Sail too. You did become part of our family because you were always working hard. You were always around. You were always friendly, courteous, kind. And I'm going to believe those skills are part of why you're having so much success where you are now. Now, that being said, it's not always easy. It's a difficult job. What are the challenges you face every day, especially when you're doing the MMJ work?
I would say time management is a huge thing. I mean, we have our stories assigned at 9:30 and our first scripts need to be done by 3. And if you don't have all your information, your stuff's not going to air. And if your stuff's not going to air, you've got a big problem. So I think managing your time well is so important. Having connections is really important too, because if you've got a mental health expert on speed dial, that will save you so much time from having to call around to different facilities or going through public information officers. So connections, really important. And with that, your attitude, because if you're not friendly and appreciative for people making time for you, they're never going to do it again. I mean, we are coming into people's homes, we are, coming into their businesses, and we're asking them to share their stories with us and give us their expert advice on, heavy topics like mass shootings or veteran suicide. Those have been topics we've been diving into heavily. And you can't just expect people to talk to you. I mean, you need to make sure that they feel like what they're going to tell you is going to be valuable and could potentially help somebody. So I think time management, healthy networking and communications, and being able to go with the flow and troubleshoot your own technology, because things are going to break and you're going to have to be able to fix things and go with the flow. Your TV is going to break, your camera is going to, change some settings, and you need to be able to say, okay, let me take a step back. I know how to work a camera. Can I fix this? And at the end of the day, you just need to be so confident in your abilities, because there's nobody else there to help you. I mean, you can go back to your station and get help, but when you're an hour and a half out, you need to say, okay, I know how to do this. I'm trained for this. Now let me go do this. So, yeah.
Are the cameras a lot different to operate? Because obviously we teach you all the basics on our camera. Is there much of an adjustment period to learn the camera that you use?
I wouldn't say it's a huge adjustment period, but not knowing what, 10 or 12 buttons do can prove to be very problematic, especially because you need to be able to change these things fast. And you can't set up for an interview, get it all set up and go, I don't know how this works. Let me call my station, because you just hurt your credibility right there with the person that you're interviewing. And they're probably not going to want to finish the interview if they feel like you don't know what you're doing in your own field. So it's not a huge adjustment, but it's really important to take the time to ask the questions and be well versed in all of your equipment before you start doing it on a day-to-day basis.
I remember when I was a student and I was interviewing University of Maryland's basketball coach, who had just won the national championship, by the way. And my battery died in the middle of the interview. And he was known for being kind of a gruff guy. And so I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. My battery died. I couldn't believe that he actually was kind enough to wait it out. I was a little surprised by that, but yeah, I know that feeling. It's like, oh my God, the equipment doesn't work right now. How do I look to this person? You brought up an interesting point about convincing people to talk to you. And that's, I think, the hardest part of the job sometimes is you can't control other people's actions. So you want to do this kind of story, but this story isn't happening unless you get these interviews. Do you have any secrets as to how to maybe work on a person to allow them to open up to want to do an interview?
Well, if they're lighter topics, my first thing is, hey, do you want to be on TV, when, sticking a mic in their face, and then telling them that it's going to be the easiest 30 seconds of their life, and that they're going to have fun and it's going to be a great experience. And that usually works on them when you tell them, it's only going to take 30 seconds or a minute. But then there are also the people that really don't want to be on camera, and they'll start yelling at you, which is really out of pocket, but that's a whole different story. But no, I think your personality is so important. I'm very extroverted. So it's, hey, how are you? How are, things in your life? I'm Ellie Davis, WITN, really nice to meet you. This is the story that we're running, and explaining it at the very basic level, because I've noticed the minute that you go too in depth and you overwhelm somebody, they walk. So being able to just, in 10 seconds or less, the shortest elevator pitch you'll ever give, why do I want you to talk? And we just, for the most part, when we're looking for sound bites, it's either a very specific audience or it's just anybody in the community. So you need to make sure that people understand why you're asking them and what you want from them. And just, I think being nice always gets me somewhere. I mean, being personable, because I have gone to similar, we'll stand outside of grocery stores or shopping malls, and I've had people, tell me, oh, I wouldn't have done this if you weren't so nice. So I think positivity and politeness will get you so much further than either being grumpy because you're in a rush or just being impolite because you're not as extroverted as you kind of need to be in this job field.
Making them comfortable sounds like what you're saying. And I was thinking about this earlier this week. We were out on our stand-up field day, which I'm sure you remember from my class. And I was talking to them about, when you interview people, the use of a lavalier microphone can really help, because it makes people feel comfortable. Because as you said, they don't have the microphone in their face. And a very common thing that will happen, and I don't know if you've run into this much yet or not, but you'll finish the interview with the person, and they'll get, let's say they were sitting down, they'll get up to walk away, and all of a sudden they feel the tug of the lavalier microphone, and like, oh, I forgot that was even there. And that's really your goal, right? To make them forget that they're on TV. They're just having a conversation with you. So
I've had that happen a number of times. I'm like, wait, I need that back. I have more work to do. But it does help them feel more comfortable, which is good.
You brought up the elevator pitch. Let's talk about the story idea pitch. We did that in class too. And I don't know what it's like at your station. Can you take us through the process of how your ideas turn into a story at the end of the day?
Yeah, so every morning we do 9:30 editorial meetings. And the biggest asset for me to finding things going on in the community is social media. So the night before I go into work, I'll scroll through. I'm in tons of Greenville, North Carolina Facebook groups, whether it's moms groups, it's video game groups, homeowners associations, being in whatever you can, because you want to know what's going on in the area you live in. So I'll go through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, if you can find stuff. We find a lot of things going wrong in the school system from TikTok, from students taking videos, posting them. Yeah. So very valuable to go through social media. And then also taking national stories. The other day we ran a story on the mass shooting on, the Lunar New Year in California, which was heavily impacting the Asian American population. So then we take it to Greenville and we ask people in the Asian American population, how do you feel about this? Do you have any concerns about the area you live in? And so making national news local news, and how are you going to localize that? And you need to know all of that before you walk into the pitch meeting, because you can't be standing there and give a half thought out pitch and expect for it to get picked up. And you need to come in with 3 well thought out plans, who you want to talk to, what direction you want to go in. All of that is incredibly important. And then they pick up our stories, and then we go on our merry way.
What happens if you don't have ideas?
They give you a really judgmental look, and then they will either tell you to go sit down and find something better, or if they have something in mind or community events that are on the calendar, they'll send you to those.
So pretty much you get a story you don't want to do.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, if we're being honest.
So you've developed a lot. I've seen some of your work. You've made some great strides forward. How has your writing, your editing, and your performance evolved since you've gotten into the business when, oh, by the way, you got to get stories done a lot faster than when you were in college?
Yeah, I think my writing has definitely improved, especially because I've got more people looking at it, but you're also turning it in a shorter amount of time. And you don't have as long of airtime either. So you're taking, a page or two of information and you're having to condense it into 30 seconds of an on-screen read. So it really helps you prioritize, what is really important for me to convey to the people that are watching this. And then at the same time, my performance has gotten so much better because I've gotten so much more comfortable. I mean, I remember the first time I did a live hit for WITN, I thought I was going to be sick because I was so terrified I was not even going to remember my own name. But I think being able to veer away from your script a little bit, especially when giving your intros and your outros, because those you're not reading. We read our VOs. I mean, we read those off of our scripts, but other than that, when you're on camera, you need to know what you're saying. And I think not being tightly wound and saying, I need to say this word for word and making it a conversation, I've grown so much in terms of being able to deliver those in a way that is, human and not robotic.
And that's where those reps come in, because once you've gone through it, and once you've gone through that experience Ellie just mentioned where, oh my God, I just went on camera and I remembered everything I was going to say, and then they tossed to me and I forgot everything. Once you've experienced that and you know how to get through it, then it's a little easier the next time. And also your play-by-play and commentary experience, I think that adds to the ad-libbing because, wow, you've got a game in front of you. You've got 2 hours to talk about it. There's no script for that. How do you get through 2 hours? I think that's all very valuable to you. One thing you brought up to me in our last conversation about a week ago that was, wow, that was like a very interesting thing that I didn't really know until I talked to you, was your thought of my passion is now in news more than sports. We talk to our reporters or our students that are going into the field, and we encourage them to get involved in local news and news jobs, not sports, because again, it gets you the reps, it gets you the opportunity to improve on camera, improve your writing, improve everything. But sometimes it takes you down a path that you didn't know you wanted, and that's what happened with you. So how did being in the news industry change your taste per se to know that this is what you want to do long term?
I do think that I never thought I would have stepped away from sports, and I still have an interest in it. I will still love sports, I think, more than life itself, but there's such an attractiveness to news that I've developed recently, and there's just something so raw about it. And it's different from the opportunities that I had with sports, and I will always love it. But being welcomed into somebody's home and having them talk about the best days of their life, the worst day of their life, and then it's your job to go share that with the community. It's life-changing. It really is. I mean, there is just so much of a human element to news that I never expected to, be involved with, and I love it. And it's just my passion for television has only grown, and my interest in the local news side has skyrocketed from the minute I started to now.
And the good news is if you do choose the path of news instead of sports, then you can still go to the games, right?
Oh, yeah.
And oftentimes, I know that's not the case with you now, oftentimes your weekends are a little bit more free if you end up working a Monday to Friday job, which there are more of. So there are definite advantages, but I love your passion for what you're doing. I think that's really special to me, that you love your job, you're getting the most out of it, you're having a fun time with it. And I think that's really special, Ellie. I did want to ask you too, you got into a little bit of this, but some people, I remember I had a friend of mine who he would watch me on TV and he would always like text me after, so, hey, your tie's crooked, and like mess with me. And he thought all I did was just like sit in front of a TV and watch the games and then just like walk out there like 10 minutes. Well, what do you do the rest of the day? Right. So obviously you do a lot the rest of the day. What are some of the additional responsibilities maybe people don't think of that are part of your day, including social media?
Yeah, so I do think that some of the additional responsibilities include being extremely active on social media. I mean, you want these people to know you and every aspect of you. So being involved on social media, doing a lot of web work. I mean, every single day we have to transcribe our video pieces to web stories. So that's additionally a responsibility. Setting up all your own interviews, making all your own calls. Your equipment is your responsibility. I mean, my tripod is basically my height, which is an interesting challenge. So carrying all your own stuff, yeah, it's interesting. So just there's so much more beyond getting on TV and saying, giving your spiel, sharing your story, and calling it a day. I mean, it is an intense job that is all time consuming from the minute you walk in the door to the minute you finish your last live hit.
Let's talk about that gear situation. So yeah, I've never thought about it being the same height as you, but and especially for a female having to lug around all your gear, and I mean, and same for some smaller males too. It's a situation that's it can be difficult. How do you handle having all that gear and bringing it to where you need to and making sure you have everything you need to for every interview?
Well, I keep a checklist in my car, from camera batteries to lavaliers to stick mics to TVU cables, always having backups because you never know when things are going to break. So I would say a checklist has saved my life. And then also making sure that the bags that you're carrying are organized. I mean, you can't go to open a book bag and have 18 wires all scrambled about, especially when you're trying to get an interview quickly. You're trying to catch people before they leave an event, or you're walking up to, somebody in the Senate, or, just people that are influential, and you're going to miss those opportunities if you don't get them now. So being super organized is going to save your life. And then in terms of carrying everything, I mean, my book bag for work is probably, I don't know, it looks like a Ninja Turtle backpack. I mean, it goes on the back of my neck, and then it goes all the way down to like almost my knees. I mean, that thing is ginormous. And also being able to comfortably walk around when people are looking at you, talking about how your bag is bigger than you are. Being super comfortable with that is definitely something to get used to. But it's a lot of stuff to carry. So, it's a really good workout though.
Yeah, I bet. Well, you touched on a lot of the challenges. What makes the job so fun for you every day?
I think doing live hits are so exciting. I mean, it's a minute every hour for 3 hours, but it's so exciting watching the work that you did all day go to air, and now you're informing people on, hey, maybe you didn't know this was happening. Let me tell you. And when you get done and you just did a good live shot and nothing went wrong, and your props worked great and your script got delivered well, it's kind of, you're patting yourself on the back, but it's like, hey, I did good work today, and 9 hours went into 1 minute and everything went great. And that is the best feeling in the whole wide world, is to know that all the work you did all day was, turned into this great product.
We're talking to Ellie Davis of I want to make sure I say it right, WITN-TV. I keep wanting to say WTIN. It just flows off the tongue that way. But Ellie Davis with us. And Ellie, it's time for the next big question, which is, where do you hope your dreams lead you next in this business?
Well, coming this May, I am eligible to potentially move stations if I'm interested. Nashville has always been a dream market of mine. There's so much history and culture, and there's so much music and just passion for the people that live here. So within the next couple of months, or even, way down the road, I would love to be an evening news anchor and possibly a reporter. I haven't necessarily decided exactly, but I would really like to stay in news and end up in a TV market like Nashville, so I can, partake in, in the culture and the community that's here.
Yeah, and it's nice if you can make that move up as an anchor, right? Because you've worked really hard to get that opportunity. And some people, I'll tell them, like, they'll have this decision to make. Do I want to give up my anchor job to go to a big market, but then I'm back as a reporter and I'm going to have to eventually work my way back up that way? Or do you keep patient and find the right opportunity where you can move on as an anchor? And I think like the role you're in now is perfect because you're getting both the anchoring and the reporting in. So it shows your versatility. It's an opportunity for you to grow in both areas. And then the next jump, and maybe perhaps it is in Nashville, it's an opportunity for you to go there and just continue to grow with that. So I think that's great. How do you feel that what you're doing right now is supporting your dreams as you go along in this business, which, by the way, you're really young, so you got a long way to go. As long as you want to be part of this, you're going to be a star. So how do you think what you're doing now is supporting those dreams?
I think that any involved that you have in TV news or in sports is going to help you further your career along. I am getting the experience behind the desk. I'm getting the experience behind the camera. I'm getting the experience as a reporter, and I'm doing it every day. And I think as long as you can constantly say, I am committed to this and I am, getting experience every single day, it will help, that dream down the line. I think the moment that you stop learning, the moment that you stop getting involved is, the time when you really start losing out on everything and you're pushing that dream further down the road.
Well, down the end of the road, we have gone with this interview. We like to end with what we call a dream sequence, which is kind of word association, right? I'm going to throw out a question for you, dream this, dream that, and you take it whatever area you want to go in, quick responses with it. So it's kind of what's off the top of your head. So let's start with dream interview. Who would you like to interview?
Doris Burke.
Why?
I would probably cry if I met her, but I can't think of a more influential woman in sports. Awesome.
Great answer. All right. Dream work assignment. What would you like to cover?
The Olympics, the Summer Olympics.
Is there a specific city that would be ideal for that for you?
If they were in Greece, I would be out the door tomorrow.
Yeah.
So anywhere in Greece.
You know what, Ellie, that was my dream too, because I never covered the Olympics. I never been to the Olympics. And I remember when they were in Greece, the birthplace of them. I have been to Greece and seen the stadium where the original Olympics were, but yeah, it would be amazing if they can bring them back there again and you get that opportunity. And hey, you're an NBC station, and NBC still holds the Olympic rights. So you never know. They do send, I know people who've done it, who've been part of those teams that cover it. So it'll be a fantastic opportunity for you. All right. Finally, you mentioned this earlier in our conversation. You said how important it is to take some time to relax. So where is your dream relaxation location?
My dream relaxation location. I have been to Greece and it was the happiest I've ever been. So I think drop me off in a beach in Greece and I'm the happiest person ever. But if we're talking more locally, just hanging out on my back patio.
That sounds very nice. And you've earned that time, Ellie. You're working so hard. So I'm really excited for everything coming up for you. Let's end this with one last question. What advice do you have to our students and graduates in terms of how they can succeed and live their own dreams?
I think the best way to succeed is being, able to say yes, being able to adapt to any changes and be welcoming to everything, whether it be a new opportunity, a new management style, a new person, just being so willing to do anything and everything, within reason, but just always setting yourself up for success is really important.
Well, every brick that Ellie laid to set her foundation for success has paid off so far. She's doing an amazing job, both as an anchor and in the field and in the community, even more importantly, making those connections. Ellie, we want to thank you for your time. That brings us to the close of another Livin the Dream episode. Ellie is going to continue to do great things and enjoy the rest of her time in Nashville as well. And as for the rest of you, we want you all to keep on living the dream too.